Hello, this is Reindeer's Bees, and today I'm going to talk about how to requeen a mean hive. Now, thankfully, I haven't had a ton of experience with this, but I have requeened a mean hive before and watched a lot of other people do it too. And so I compiled everything that I've learned from my personal experience and others to explain to you what I think you can do to help requeen your mean hive. So first, obviously, you have to go through and kill the queen. So this can be challenging, especially if you're a new beekeeper and you don't have someone else like a mentor to help you find the queen. And so when you're coming into this issue, what you need to think about is, should I split this hive down? Because if you split the hive into, let's say, 2 or 3 different parts and it's 2 deeps, then it's going to be infinitely less frames. You go through each part and then let's say you split them up into 3 on Monday, you go in on Wednesday and you check the 3 different hives. 2 of them are going to have queen cells. 1 of them is not going to have queen cells. And the one that doesn't have any queen cells is the one that you have your queen in. The other 2 will start to make a queen. So what you can do is find the queen in the one that does have it, kill her, and then combine them, and then add a new queen. Or you can let them, let it be a split, let them raise their own queen. So there's a risk of her possibly the new queen being mean because her mother was, though traits, according to Paul Kelly, the aggressiveness is linked to the drones, not the mother queen. So that's something to think about. But if you want to be sure that you're not passing mean genetics on to the next line of bees, you can add a mated queen, either to each individual one or you can add a queen cell or combine them all back into one and add a mated queen or a queen cell. So splitting a hive down makes it exponentially easier for you to find the queen. And it also makes each individual hive weaker, so they're not going to be able to sting you as many times, or at least attempt to, so it's going to be more or less overwhelming. When you're trying to requeen a mean hive, it's really important that you have your smoker lit and that it stays going. So what I like to do is get it really, really hot, no matter what kind of fuel you use, and then you stuff it down and shove it down. And that creates coals in the bottom, which will stay going for a long time, as long as you keep putting fuel on it after a long time. It'll run for a while, depending on how much fuel you put in. So don't be afraid to really smoke your bees. Because, let's say when you're splitting up a hive, if you really smoke them, it doesn't matter because you're not looking for that queen that day. Smoke can drive the queen off the frames, but if you're not looking for her that day, don't be afraid to use a lot of smoke. Use as much as you need to be comfortable with the bees. It's important for you not to get too scared and swear off beekeeping because of this one mean hive, because I promise you, most of them aren't like that, and you'll be able to have much nicer hives in the future. So make sure you use plenty of smoke. And if it's really an aggressive hive, what often can be the case is that there's not a honey flow on and the bees aren't bringing in food. And so when the bees don't have stuff to do, they're really mean, very aggressive often. So give them some honest work to do. So you can feed them pollen patty, which takes up a little bit of their time, but mostly you want to focus on feeding them sugar water. If you feed them sugar water, it'll give them something to do. It'll feel like food's coming in, so it'll make the bees a lot happier. They'll be hopefully less aggressive towards you, at least to a certain extent, depending on how long. I would say you'd want to feed at least a few days before you want to split them up or kill the queen or whatever you're doing with the mean hive. So make sure you feed them a few days before. That can definitely take down their aggressive level a good amount because they have more food. Now, if it's a honey flow and they're still jerks, then feeding them is probably not going to help. But if there's low amounts of resources around at whatever time you're trying to requeen them, then feeding can definitely be a tool to help decrease their aggressiveness so you can get them requeened. So you can have nice bees because everyone wants the nice bees. If you don't want to split your hive down into a bunch of different parts like I talked about earlier in the video, you can use a queen excluder. So let's say you have 2 deeps. You can put the queen excluder in between the 2 boxes and come back in 4 days. An egg hatches in 3.5 days. So just round up to 4. If you come back in 4 days, then you know whichever side you see eggs on, that's the side with the queen on it. The other side's not going to have eggs, and you know the queen's not there. So then you can further split down the hive if you need to. But this allows you to have a much better idea of where the queen exactly is. So mite stress bees are meaner. So like with humans, the more stressed we are, the more grumpy or unpleasant we can be. So that's the same with bees. So if your bees have a lot of viruses and a lot of mites in their colony, they're going to be more aggressive because they're dealing with the stresses from the mite diseases, which are the main issues with mites. Mites do damage young bees, which is an issue, and I thought that was really important. But the really huge problem with drone mites is that they inject viruses into the bees, and those viruses persist for a long time in the hive. So you really need to think about getting rid of those mites. Test the bees if you can, if they're really mean. And if you knew they had a high mite load at least a time ago, then you know that possibly your bees could be really aggressive due to that mite treatment, or not having mites, or having a lot of mites. And meaning that if you put treatment on, it may change their attitude. I don't think this will solve all your problems, but it might decrease their aggressiveness to a certain extent. Now, I think the most underrated tip that people don't talk about on YouTube is moving hives to get rid of their foraging force. People don't understand the biology of the bees. The bees that are oldest in the hives are the ones that are going to sting you. So I believe I watched a video yesterday and it said that that foragers are bees between like age day 35 and 50 or something. So if you move your hive, let's say 10 or 20 feet, all the foragers that were going to come back to that hive, they're now going to be stuck sitting on or flying back to wherever they previously were. So they'll fly out of the colony even after you move it down. Let's say you move it 20 feet down the hill. All the foragers that are currently in the colony, they will eventually fly out. And then since they're used to being oriented to a specific location, they will fly back to that and won't come back to the colony. It's not that they don't want to, it's just that they're programmed in their mind to go back to the location they oriented to originally. So that's how you get rid of all your foragers. The foragers are the ones that are going to be the most aggressive and most likely to sting you. So you're solving a lot of your problems by moving the hive, and you can always move it back once you requeen the hive. So you can use queen cells or mated queens to requeen. So queen cells are probably more likely, I don't know, it's tough. They're both pretty good options for being accepted. It's not like adding a virgin queen where there's a relatively low chance unless you manipulate it in a specific way to get a queen introduced. A queen cell, bees are pretty apt to accept that. They might even be willing to accept it when your current queen is in there. Like if you trap her under an excluder and you put a queen cell above, that's something I'm kind of interested in trying. If that queen cell hatches, will the bees let it hatch, one? And two, if she hatches, will she go down and kill the queen below and then go out and mate and come back? So you can use a queen cell or a mated queen. Queen cells maybe a better, they're much lower risk option for potentially high reward, but they could tear down the cell and then you have no chance of getting a new queen into the hive unless you buy another one. So then mated queens are the most common way to requeen a mean hive, and you just add one in, but there are many factors to getting that queen accepted. And I don't really have the time to go through all of those in this video, but I made a video right up here that details all of the important factors that go into queen acceptance. And if you do these, you'll have a much higher chance of getting that new queen accepted, which is even more important when you're dealing with a very mean hive.